Hi, everyone, and welcome to my family involvement mini case study. My name is Justin, and we'll go ahead and get started here. This is a summary of the mini case study. The main characters in this case study are Joel and Miles. Those two characters are the students. Mr. and Mrs. Pham, that's Joel's parents. And then Mr. Rolnick and Miss Smith are the teachers. The situation that was presented in the case study is that Mr. Rolnick he strives to engage his families in their children's education. That's his main priority. Not main priority, but it's a focus of his. One of the families, though, the FAMs, they are reluctant and do not participate or accept the opportunities to engage that Mr. Rolnick provides. The current dilemma is that their son Joel is wanting to work with Miles, another student in the class, on a science fair project, and Mr. Rolnick requires a parent meeting prior to giving approval for the two kids to be working together. Mr. Rolnick reached out to the FAMs, and the FAMs declined the invitation for a parent meeting to be held in person and said that they could just talk from home. Mr. Rolnick went to a veteran teacher in the school, Mrs. Smith, and she enlightened him that there could be some additional barriers that he should consider that are holding them back from engaging in the school. So, what I'm going to talk about now is the factors that might be holding the FAMs back from engaging with Mr. Rolnick. So, to start off with, the one that comes to my mind, or that would be the most obvious, is that there's no trust between Mr. Rolnick and the FAMs. Miss Smith mentioned that the FAMs had history with the school from the past, their childhood growing up. They didn't have a great relationship with the school and the teachers that were with the school. That there was not very many other families that had the same or similar cultural ethnicity as they did, so they may have felt ostracized. So Mr. Rolnick just hadn't created that trust with the fams yet to let them know that he did care about them and he does value them. So just they don't have a relationship. Another barrier that could be separating the Rolnicks from Mr. Rolnick from the FAMs is maybe his environment isn't as welcoming as he believes it is. And then lastly, they also may feel that their culture is not valued or appreciated. So I have had a similar situation in my classroom this year. Actually, our grade level, we decided to host holiday readers, and we did this as a way to engage families in the classroom. I invited families to choose a holiday story of their choice to read to the class the last 2 weeks before winter break. I thought this would be a great way to include several different religions and people who maybe celebrate, not religion, sorry, include several different holidays that maybe students aren't used to celebrating. So, to give them some exposure to different holidays from around the world. But I also should have considered that some families may have not had, or some parents may have not had a good experience in school, which could have caused some anxiety to not want to read in front of the class. Next, we're going to talk about how would the staff even know of this barrier that the FAMs face in not feeling welcome or comfortable at the school. So I feel like most of the staff wouldn't know unless it was brought up by a veteran teacher. I also think to myself, not every staff member maybe has interactions with Joel. So they may not even have a relationship with him to start off with. However, if Joel was in my classroom, one thing that we do is at the end of every school year, we fill out student information sheets, and I call it vertical collaboration. So I would collaborate as a third grade teacher. I would collaborate with the second grade teachers, and that could be something, or it definitely should be something that Joel's second grade teacher maybe informs me of, so I'm better prepared to meet the FAMS' needs whenever their kiddo comes to my classroom. So, unless either the veteran teacher or the teacher from before shares that information, it's probably not known. I do feel like this is an opportunity though where the principal could prepare teachers so whenever they do have interactions with the family, that they're mindful of their interactions, they're mindful of how they are talking with the fam, so they do feel welcome and that there is none of that hostile environment for them. How could this situation be eliminated or keep it from happening? I think just taking the time to get to know Mr. and Mrs. Pham at the beginning of the school year would have went a long ways. In my opinion, a questionnaire or just some questions to ask them, maybe an open house, not putting them on the spot, but just getting an idea of what are their needs. So, what are some of your goals for this year for Joel? Where is your family from? Where have you lived? What is some background information you would like to share about you or your child? What is their preferred method of communication? I know Mr. Rolnick has mentioned a lot of the time about his way of communicating, but maybe his way of communicating isn't what Mr. and Mrs. Pham need. So he could kind of tailor that communication for them so he can get some more involvement. In addition, just engaging with the family during open house, the back to school night. I remember from an article or one of our resources was just showing the family how the classroom works. So maybe they didn't have a great experience in school, maybe because of how the classroom was ran, but just showing them how the classroom, Mr. Rolnick runs the classroom might have put them more at ease. And then lastly, something that I do think is important because their culture maybe isn't as valued as much in that community, mostly because there isn't much of it, but just bringing their culture to light and showing that the fams that their culture is valued and that you're trying to integrate it into the classroom and share their experiences with the classroom. Um, an experience that I had that was similar to this was where families weren't kind of reaching back out or or not necessarily reaching back out, but just there was some barriers. Whenever I taught in Las Vegas, the school that I taught at, we hosted matinees, and we relied heavily on parent volunteers to create outfits for the matinees, to help with the um, kind of like the staging of the matinee, all sorts of stuff, right? So the families would come in and volunteer their time. However, like the FAMs mentioned, the Mrs. Rolnick was able to come in because her work allowed it. Some places obviously don't allow parents to just take off work for volunteering opportunities. So I did provide opportunities for families to take supplies home to work on. I created like little Ziploc bags. All of this stuff was in there. I gave it to their kiddo. They took it home and then it was returned at whatever date I would request it by. So that was just like one way of a solution of not every family can volunteer. In-person time, but just providing that time at home still is a solution and still is volunteering. Um, Lastly, what are some ways parents can be involved and demonstrate interest in their child's education other than volunteering at school? I think this is like a really good question just because we talk about parent involvement a lot and engagement. And volunteering is one way of, yeah, showing that they're involved. However, some families may look at this as like being used or taken advantage of. Um, a lot of it could be looked as like just busy work. Hey, I need these things to be done. Can you do these for me? Yeah, that's asking, but it may be just not, depending on their perspective and their take on it, it might not come off as volunteering or helpful as you want it to be. So I thought of other ways parents could show engagement and that they do care about their kids' education was just support at home when questions arise with homework or schoolwork, or if kids are coming home saying they're really struggling with math. One way of showing interest would be, hey, what exactly are you needing help with? Or maybe would a tutor be something that we can look into providing you, or summer learning opportunities. Also, donating items into the classroom, such as books, snacks, and prizes for students. Looking at the students' attendance. So, are the fans getting Joel to school on time? Are the absences that Joel is having, are they excused absences? Taking that into consideration. And lastly, does Joel have the supplies he needs to be successful? I think all of those are just simple ways of a parent demonstrating interest into their child's education. So this concludes my mini case study, and this is my reference.